Hi, I'm here with Chrissy Chase today. She is an accredited financial counselor, a former financial advisor, who now coaches individuals, couples, and business owners on building financial confidence. With a degree in finance and lived experience as a single mom, business owner, and corporate leader, she blends expertise with empathy. Chrissy helps clients reduce debt, ease money stress, and create a healthier relationship with their finances so they can unlock their full potential and design the future that they want. So, welcome, Chrissy. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So I always like to start, as everyone knows, with why I have someone on and who they are to me. I really like to have a personal connection with all my guests, and with Chrissy, for me, it's been life changing, and this is a huge part, as you know. Women in wellness and women of wellness, which is what my podcast is called. We really want wellness all around. And it's not just about health. It's not just about fitness. It's also about financial health. And this has been a huge missing piece of the puzzle for me, being divorced and now single on my own for 4 years and owning a business. So I want to say was it in January that we started? So yeah, we're close, coming up on a year that we've been working together. And there's no coincidence, I say, in the trajectory that my business has gone just by working with you. And it's been such a pleasure. And now I've brought you on to all of my locations that I open, because starting out with the right financial coaching and help is so, so important. And it's very much missing with women. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to touch on some of that today. But first, so you always say your tagline is where financial expertise meets real world understanding. Can you share how your personal journey, being a single mom, a business owner, and basically everything in between, has kind of shaped the way that you support your clients today?
Sure. It's interesting because when you say financial coach, everybody's mind goes towards numbers, spreadsheets, and money. And although I do have a lot of financial background experience, I have a degree in finance, I taught finance, I've been a financial advisor, I've owned several businesses. It's the actual life experience that I've had that makes me capable and good at what I do. And so, what is that? I've been the single mom with no money, broke, living on $5 a day. I've been the married spouse, staying at home, trying to manage the budget. I've had a second marriage and a blended family. I've raised 3 stepkids, and then I've been divorced twice. I have had several businesses. I owned a franchise and all types of businesses in between. Currently have my own business. And so those are the things that make me relatable to my clients, that they know that I understand what they're going through. They know that I've sat in their chair, and they know that I get it. Because with all of the emotion that's wrapped up in money, all of the experiences that you have in life feed into making those decisions. So that is actually why I do what I do, is to help people with that emotional side.
Yes, and it shines through. I mean, absolutely. Just the way that you work with even my licensees or my clients, and the way you've worked with me, it's so empathetic. And as you know, that's what I teach, how to deal with people with empathy, but especially women, because we're so underserved in so many ways, but the financial part is even more. I want to say sometimes it's even bigger, because that's the stress part in the brain, right? And so sometimes it's even bigger than the health stuff or the menopause or any of that. Because once that piece is sorted, then so that relatability is what really I love the most about you. So you said, growing up, money was kind of a taboo topic in your household, which I don't feel like it was a taboo topic in my household, but I didn't learn a lot growing up about money. And so how did that early experience influence your decision to study finance and eventually become what you are now, like a financial coach?
Right. Yeah. So I would say, like, it's a taboo topic in that I was raised in the time of, we don't talk about money. Right. So I was in your stereotypical Irish Catholic family living outside of Boston with 4 siblings, lots of cousins in town. And my dad had a good job. He was a successful salesman. We lived in a beautiful house, and, one of the nicer houses in town. And we had a summer house, a beach house that we would go to every summer. But there was always the message from my mom that we're poor or we don't have enough or we have to save and don't spend a penny. And I don't know that that was true, but it was always the message that she conveyed to us. And I don't know whether that was something that she genuinely thought in her head, like we should have more money than we do, or it was something she said to us in order for us not to ask for anything, not to want to spend money, to be, very, very savings oriented. And it wasn't until later in life when I was a mom and had kids, she said to me off the cuff, your children should always think you're poor. What? Right. I mean, this is the lady, like she would buy one package of raisin oatmeal cookies and we'd get one cookie. And that was it. You had to ask for food out of the fridge. But so it was really confusing because we had a nice house, a nice family, seemed well off. They could put 5 children through college, but then there was this side. And what I later realized in her saying that is she and my father came from very different backgrounds. And so she had grown up in a bit of a struggling family, and she had that scarcity mentality, right? And so I did go to school and I studied finance. And what I took away from all of that, because it took me a while also to understand this, it's not something that everybody does overnight, is money is a tool to be used to create the life you want to have. Okay. And there's a balance. So it's not just I need more money all the time or I need to be wealthy all the time. It's what is the lifestyle that you feel comfortable in and you want to have? And then you just use money as an everyday tool to get there. And that's really what I learned. Um, but it took me a while to figure it out. And I think that's where a lot of people grow up not really understanding what their family story is.
Yes, and that I do think that history and understanding that plays a huge role because that goes kind of back to the trauma stuff and that people have and how we're conditioned, right?
Yeah,
And it's the subconscious mind and rewiring it and it takes time because I
it
know when
does.
I started working with you it was like, "Oh wow, I'm unlearning a lot of things." And it doesn't make you bad, it's just but recognizing it, to move forward. So, what was the turning point when you realized you wanted to shift sort of from being a financial advisor, focused on investment to a financial coach, focus more on sort of that like money guidance, holistic side of things?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in 2016, I was living in Northern California and going through a pretty long divorce, right? It took a while. And during that time, women started calling me saying, "Could you help me out with my finances? They're getting divorced." And they didn't want anybody to know, right? So it was this kind of secret thing that we did. And what I realized was a lot of them had absolutely no idea about what to do. Because when you think about divorce, when you make the decision to get divorced, there's always the children to think about, right? And all of that. But there's also it's a financial process. It's an unraveling of the life and the assets that you've built together. And so I was helping them and I thought, okay, I know I need to go back to work now that I'm divorced and I wanted to. I had been a stay-at-home mom and was eager to get back into the world. So I got a job as a financial advisor and I knew what it was. I'd worked for Merrill Lynch many, many years ago, got my Series 7 and 66 and 65 and all that kind of stuff. And I got in there and it was all about investments. But what I noticed is my clients were mainly women and looking for help in their, 40s and 50s. And I'd tell them, we're going to invest you in this, and this is your risk tolerance, and blah, blah, blah. And they would say, yeah, whatever. Can you help me out with this? They wanted help with the here and now. They wanted to know, I have some debt. How do I get rid of it? I have some issues with money. How can I manage this? I'm making really weird decisions. Can you help me? And I didn't even know that that was a financial coach, right? So I realized that what I was doing wasn't really what I wanted to do. I wanted to be more boots on the ground, helping people with their day to day, week to week, month to month. And I just started helping women for free. And it was through a woman that I know who's a financial advisor. She said, you know that what you're doing is a financial coach. I said, who knew? So I look it up and I am for sure. I'm a financial coach. So, I always want to make sure I have the accreditation and everything that I need. So I did take the Accredited Financial Counselor exam, which is a FINRA. FINRA doesn't like support or deny something, but it's a FINRA um, accreditation. So a certification. Yeah.
Oh, so you can get accredited in that.
Well, it's more of a yeah, certification. So it's not like the license, but it's a certification accreditation, right? So I'm an accredited financial counselor, which I felt was important, that I know all the aspects of personal finance. And so then I just started helping people, and it grew word of mouth. Um, I didn't do any social media advertising. And what I realized is there are so many people that want help, but they're afraid to ask. And clients would usually come in the form of me being at an event, asking me what I do. And then later they'd come back and say, can we have a coffee? Right? Because it's not something you put out on blast.
I just think the parallels between what you're talking about and what we're doing, what I'm like my business with body contouring and stuff and the empathy stuff. I mean, it's just full circle. It comes all the way around, with every aspect of for women's lives. And like I said, just so underserved. And so, okay, going back a little bit to that, what we touched on with the financial trauma and emotional kind of side of money.
Yeah.
So you often talk about the emotional and psychological aspects of money. So can you explain what financial trauma is and how it shows up in women's lives? I know we said a little bit about past and obviously our
Right.
conditioning, but yeah, if you want to talk a little bit about that,
Yeah.
great.
And on that note, we say with what you do, very much so, it's all tied together, right? So full wellness is everything. It's not just in one particular area. And so you can't just have your finances healthy if you're not going to be physically healthy, right? So on the topic of financial trauma, I think it's very prevalent, and it's something that hasn't really been discussed at length, but it's starting to be, just like I think COVID helped us say it's okay to not be okay. And now I think it's starting to be, it's okay to talk about my finances in a way that I can share that I don't feel okay. And that's the people that come to me. So what is financial trauma? It is really the emotional and psychological distress that is the result of negative financial experiences that you have had in your past. And it can be a very long time ago, but it can also be something that wasn't very long ago. The example I give with my mother, I don't know if that's financial trauma so much as it's mixed messaging and confusion, but it did have emotional consequences, right? So I'm going to put it in the financial trauma category. The reason I know that is my now second ex-husband. He once said I can make a penny scream, meaning it in a good way. And what it realized is I was kind of acting like her, right? We had a nice house, he had a good job, and that same thing. So we always have to check ourselves. And these financial traumas, they're going to shape your behavior, they're going to shape your attitude, right? They're going to affect your nervous system. And they're really going to determine the decisions that you make and how you manage your money and your relationship with money. So here's an example, just an easy one. If you grew up with parents that were always fighting about money, either how they spend it or there wasn't enough. So this isn't always like, oh, there's not enough money. Many wealthy people fight about money. Okay. And now you yourself are married and your spouse says, I want to talk about money. Here's the question. What do you do? Do you go into fight mode? Is it trigger you that you're like, oh, I've seen this. I know how this is going to end. We're going to end up in a big fight. I don't want to talk about it. Right.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so you shut it down. And then your spouse thinks they're not communicating with me. They don't want to talk about it. But it's that past story. It's the history. If you had a situation where, for example, you had a lot of debt in your life, maybe you had to go through a bankruptcy. You may now see all debt as being bad, but that's not true because not all debt is bad, right? It just has to be responsible debt and purposeful debt. And so you need to heal that trauma on the what and the why. What happened? Why did it happen? And how am I going to move forward to build a new narrative, reframe things, and hold myself accountable to not falling back into those old ways? Another thing that I see often is for people that may have grown up in a situation of poverty. And it can go one of two ways. scarcity mentality where they don't want to spend anything now because they know what it was like and they're afraid. Or now I have money, I'm going to spend every penny. So, it manifests itself very differently in everybody.
I do see, especially with people that immigrate here from like a war-torn country, there's a lot of that going on, like either hoarding or trying to get super rich and just spending.
Right.
I've seen that firsthand. So, and then, so obviously in keeping with like the trauma and with women in particular. So I feel like many women, I mean, including myself, I dealt with this, feel guilt, shame, or avoidance when it comes to money. So what are some first steps that they can take to start healing that financial relationship with money? Like just some tips, because I know when I started with you, I was crying. Like I was really crying because it felt like therapy, just leaving. And we didn't even get to spreadsheets and those things for a long time because we had to unravel that stuff. So yeah, any tips you can give, because
Mhm.
I don't really know what you did with me, actual was amazing, but I don't know the actual tricks of it all.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned the tiers. So first you said guilt, shame, and avoidance. And I really like that you put the words in that order because, people do things which creates guilt and it can be a whole host of things. I don't like to give too many examples because people think, oh, that's the one or not the one. But when we do things that create guilt, what happens is we become ashamed of it and we hide it. And shame is probably one of the most severe reasons why people then withdraw from their money or withdraw from doing what they should do because they're ashamed, right? Even when it's not their fault. And what happens is the natural thing is when you feel shame, you avoid, right? So if you're ashamed of something else, you're going to avoid that situation. If you're ashamed of your money, you're going to avoid it. And the avoidance means not looking at it, not tracking it, not taking care of it. And so what is the first thing that someone does? I think what you said is absolutely correct. Have a good cry. It's okay to have and feel emotion about those things, right? Because you can then let it out. And I think that was one of the big steps that we took was just talk about it.
Yeah. The realization sort of,
Yeah.
and just letting you feel it, feel the feels.
Feel it. Exactly. Talk about it. I would say most of the people that I talked to on the first time is there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of tears, right? Um, And that's good because they're letting themselves recognize that they don't want to be in that place anymore. They're not holding it all in, they're not avoiding it. And so then we say, okay, let's get clear on what is causing this. What is causing you to avoid it? And we have a whole system and I won't go into all the details, but it's, what is causing this? These actions. That's the first thing. And then where in your life is it impacting you? Where in your financial life? And your financial life pretty much touches everything you do. Are you avoiding friends? Are you avoiding family? Are you working in a job you hate because you have developed or you're hiding all of this debt that you can't afford to leave? Right. Um, so I would say the first thing is get clear. If there's a few things you can do, get clear on what is causing it. After you just let yourself have a good cry. And then from there, decide you good cries, like right or a few good cries. It's very important. Um, and then where is this guilt and shame showing up? And then what are the steps you want to take? And it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. Like you said, we've been meeting for coming up on a year. It's a process, and you're going to have really high days and you're going to have low days. You're going to follow it to a T, and then you're going to be like, skirt, I just can't do this right now because there's other factors that are coming into your life that are going to affect you from the side.
Right. And especially as a business owner, for me personally, like,
Yeah.
because business and personal people don't understand, like, they're not separate sometimes, especially when it's small business, so there's so much intertwined in that. And what I talk a lot about, reframing your narrative and how it's possible, to do that. So how does your coaching help reframe their stories that they've been told or have they've told themselves? Because that's our worst thing that we do is talk to ourselves and
100%.
what it is. No,
No, that's 100%. The voice in our head, especially with women. Now, I do have some male clients, and I do see differences, right? And women will tend to tell themselves ourselves things that maybe society has perpetuated some myth. Not good with money. Women like to shop. Women are spenders, you know? It's actually not true. I do a side gig as a tour leader for a women's travel company and take older women on these trips. And there's usually some time built in to do some shopping. And they typically don't want to do that. They would rather go to a museum or see something in the area. And so um, one of the things that women do is tell themselves they're not good at this because they're in a situation that either through themselves or someone else they got themselves into. It isn't that they're not good with the money. It's that they were making emotional decisions. Okay? Two different things. So what we do is we recognize what are the emotional decisions that you're making to cause this financial situation.
Right.
And then we reframe those emotional decisions and those emotional discussions and what you're telling yourself. We turn it into a different narrative. We don't lie to ourselves. We look at it differently. That allows you to build a structure and put in a complete program that now, instead of telling yourself you're bad at it, you're saying, I have learned this and look at what I'm doing.
Yes. And you do, I know, like, because obviously you're my coach, you take time to, because I can unravel. I usually do the first like 10, 15 minutes of our calls, and you take time to just listen. And then you say, you also take time to say, look at what you've accomplished. Like, let's go backwards. And so you help me personally identify the positive things that I've done, because we so often are hard on ourselves, especially as women, we can fall into that quick spiral in our heads. So the reoccurring coaching every few weeks and the constant reminder that we're doing okay, you know?
So one of the things I have just on that, yeah, I have a very good example. I have a client who makes very good money and she has an incredibly stressful job. And when we were working through things, she would keep saying, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't." And finally I said, let's reframe that. No more sorries. This is your money, right? You can spend it the way you want. Let's reframe. Every time you're going to say sorry, I want you to say something else like, you know, I think a better possibility for me to use that money would be blah, blah, blah. Or next time, I would prefer to do blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then you're so right. I missed that on. Let's look back at the accomplishments, because all these changes aren't this big, massive thing. They're tiny little changes. But you look back and after several months, you see, wow, I've changed my own story, my narrative. The things I'm telling myself are different. I am more in control of what I'm doing. And I have a really positive outlook on where I'm going.
Yeah, just I love that. So, okay, so that kind of segues perfectly into, practical guidance, but empowerment. So you've worked with individuals, couples, and business owners, all of the above. What are some common financial challenges that women face specifically, do you think?
Okay. Yeah, there's quite a few. In fact, I do a workshop on this. I was supposed to do it tonight, but they all got COVID, so it got canceled. Uh, that's okay. So women tend to be people pleasers. They tend to be givers, and it's stereotyping, but if I can say, when I talk to women and when I meet with women, that is the tendency. Okay. So what do? In a certain age group, I see a lot of women being called to or forced to or out of love want to take care of a family member that is either suffering from dementia, illness, something of that nature, where they are not financially prepared to take care of themselves, or they just don't have the resources. And so the woman will tend to step away from whatever she's doing to take care of that person without figuring out and knowing in advance what the plan is afterwards.
Right.
Right? Going to take care of a mother, moving into her house, taking care of her. And the somewhat subtle assumption is that when this is over, at some point the mother will pass. She will then live in the house. Well, if there's siblings, I'm going to tell you that's never going to happen. That house will be sold and then you're off on your own, right? 9 times out of 10. So I see that. I currently have 4 clients who are struggling taking care of family members that, what are they going to do? Our society isn't set up to really handle that. Another one is not having the talk before they get married. Okay. Yeah, everyone talks about the wedding and the plans and the honeymoon and all this, but they don't have the money talk. And I'm actually in the process of developing two programs, although I don't do like straight programs, but one for first time marriages and one for second.
Oh, I was just gonna say that because, like, obviously, first time marriages is a bit tougher because it's new, and you don't want to. You're so excited to be in that relationship and all that, but with the second time, I think we're a little wiser. But how do you approach that? Because it's your second round, and you have merging lives. That's so God.
Right. So you have to have the talk, the first time, and just what we were talking about, that financial trauma. That's where that comes in. That's where you then get married and you say, he doesn't communicate or she doesn't communicate. Well, you never found out what was their communication style growing up, what happened in their home, right? What are the values? How are you going to share money? How are you going to share debt? One comes in with credit card debt. Are you both paying that off, or is he or she or whomever going to pay that off? So you have to have things set up. I have some couples that will not share money. They have a joint account that goes in, and I have some that put everything together. There's no right answer. That's the one thing people have to know for financial coaching. The only right answer is the one that works for you. So there's no process. We don't have a method where every single thing happens the same way. Another thing I would say is not negotiating a salary. Okay, women tend to accept the offer. Men tend to negotiate a salary. And women, I don't know if this statistic is correct, but they will not negotiate, and typically end up between 7 and 10% less than what a man would get for the same job. Why? So I say between the negotiations or lack of it, taking a money, and it doesn't sound like a lot, 7%, but if you add that up over the years,
It's huge.
right? You're not putting as much into retirement. You're not taking as much home. You're not able to save as much. That, in addition to stepping out of the job for taking care of either children or parents that we just discussed or a family member, that income period is lost. So you're not scaling up. You're also not putting money away for retirement that time. And so I think being very intentional about your compensation is important. Know your worth and know what the job is paying. And that's where you can do small things that make a big difference. Women also delay investing. They don't invest their money as quickly as men. And I am not a financial advisor, so I do not give investment advice, but I used to. And I see that women will tend to leave money in a bank account because they are afraid if they invest it, it might go away, or they don't have access to it if they need it. And so again, it's that money, financial trauma. I've got to hold on to it, that type of thing, especially with women business owners. They might have credit card debt, yet they don't want to pay it off. And I'm like, oh, please, let's do that. Same with taxes, right? They're like, oh, I'll do a payment plan. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But on the credit card, you're paying 25% interest.
Interest. Yeah, exactly.
You're leaving it sitting there in a checking account. And then, I have 100 of them, but I would say one is that oftentimes as women, we want to change our career because it no longer fits our lifestyle, be it we have now children or married or whatever. But, I don't know anybody that is doing what they went to school for or started out as. Nope. Right? So, especially people that earn a high income, yet they want to switch to something else because they need more peace of mind, more flexible schedule. That is great. But I say I would like you to live on that new salary for 6 months. So we set it up, right? And this is your 6-month trial. And I'm doing this with a man now who wants to retire or partially retire. And so we're planning out his escape. And because you take the job, you're so excited to have that new career, you're so excited, you love the people, everyone's nice. But then 9, 10, 12 months down the road, you realize that you've got some credit card creep because you weren't quite making enough.
Right.
At the new job because you didn't give up the old lifestyle. And $500 a month doesn't sound like a lot, but over the course of a year, it's $6,000 with 15%, with $1,500 in interest.
Right. Right. So yeah, it's more of like the planning stuff, right? Yeah. No, and that it's kind of interesting because in my business, I have a lot of women, like all my licensees, all my laser people, they're all women, and they're usually in their 40s, 50s, or 60s, and they're all switching careers. And they're usually going from I was a nurse or I had a paycheck to I'm now a business owner, and so there is a lot of shifting gears. And I mean, that's why I love having you on with them, because there's a preparation to it. There's understanding of it, like just owning a business. Like there's so much to it. But that kind of segues into, women feeling like it's too late to take control of their finances. And I know I felt very overwhelmed, but I'm a very take charge person. So, and I recognize where I'm lacking. I have a lot of self awareness that way. Some people don't, but I'm 43 now and just taking charge of my finances a year ago. So, what can you say to women that feel like it's just too late? Like I don't have a retirement. I'm 45 or I'm 50 or whatever.
So I know I want to say it's never too late. I know that I want to say that. But sometimes people are in situations where even though they want to make a certain decision, the situation they're in doesn't allow them to. Um, because you get to a point where you won't catch up. One of the reasons I'm such a big advocate of everybody getting a financial advisor is they keep you accountable on the investment and retirement side. They keep you held to that. And then with my coaching, it's kind of a nice bridge, right? But it's never too late to take control. It's never too late to start and to look at where you're at. I would also say that if you want to make a change in your career, as I did at 57, right? It's not too late, but you have to be diligent and resolute about it. And you have to really focus on it. And so I am not one to just make people feel good, right? I wouldn't be doing my job. So at times I have had a client say they wanted to move to Europe and live somewhere and start their business. And I lived in Europe for 11 years. I lived in Germany, France, and Denmark. I could tell you how much it costs. So I can give you all the facts and then you make the decision. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means that at some point your drive has to be really, really there. When we're in our 20s, we can make mistakes. We can move on. So I would say don't wait until down the road, right? It's important that you take charge, your money, you manage your finances, you know what you're doing, because that way that's going to allow you more options down the road.
Right. Right. No, that's great. I mean, that's great advice because I mean, I think it's naive to say, oh, it's never too late. I mean, we can't say that with money. Like there's only so much time to save, but transitioning, usually people are transitioning for the most part. But for the people that aren't, so can you walk us through the approach in helping someone move from like chaos, like debt and confusion to clarity with spending,
Sure.
planning and financial strategy?
Yeah. So a lot of my clients are like you, individual business owners, women, and they have transitioned from another career into a business, and so it is important for them to have absolute clarity on what do they want and where are they going. So, like I said, every single person I work with is an individual. I don't have a sort of here we do this program every time. But I do have an underlying basis of how we look at things, and it's called the Plan Ahead Method. And it was created by a woman named Kelsey Dickey, and she is absolutely fabulous. She runs the Financial Coach Academy. And really what it does is it has you become very clear at where are you today with your finances? What are you spending on? What are your fixed expenses? And what are the things that are sinking your ship that you don't prepare for? And so we take that and we define where you want to be. And we take that gap. And then we decide what are the value things that you want to spend on. And just by looking at things a little bit differently, I think, one of my sayings is assign every dollar a job, because if you don't, it will find you one on its own. Whereas for you to say that and you won't like it. And it is absolutely true. And so part of taking control of your money is telling your money what to do and not letting your money dictate what you're doing.
Right.
Right. So exactly, empowering you. So your money isn't dictating that you have to stay in that job that you hate, because you've taken control and you know what you're doing with your money and you know exactly what you need. So it's setting up clarity. We look at where you are, where you want to be. We set up a plan that puts you in control of that plan and where you want to be. And it also, here's the thing, it gives you hope, because without hope, no plan is going to work, right? It gives you the certainty and the hope that you know that if you do the following things, you'll accomplish it. And then one of the biggest things is it provides accountability. I think for women that I work with, they appreciate accountability and they appreciate having somebody to talk to that's not a friend. Because let's face it, you're going to throw this out there and go out for coffee with your friends and throw all this out there. You're going to get replies from friends that are probably in very different financial situations. And here's the secret I'm going to tell everybody. Nobody knows anybody's financial situation. We may think we do. Social media tells us this, that, and the other thing. Everybody is struggling with something.
Right. And I say the two biggest things in life that we struggle with that make a huge difference in your life that really matter are money and health. So, and I had the money problem and haven't had the health problem, but it is just as important because we need money to live. And I remember with Dr. Bowler, my business partner, I used to say back in the day, oh, I hate money because I did it. It wasn't that I hate. And she's like, don't put that out there in the world that you hate money. You love money. And I was like, oh, but I didn't hate money. I realized I just hated what it was doing to my life and how I had to deal with it and the trauma and everything that was attached to it. So yeah, it's just such a great, like everything you do is so helpful and so empowering. And so what are just a few simple practical shifts women can start today just to feel more empowered with money? Very simple stuff. If someone's listening and they maybe aren't ready for a financial coach or just not there yet, just some simple tips and tricks.
Two easy things. And they're the opposite of each other. The first one is, if you want to feel empowered with your money, don't be afraid to say no. Okay. Right now, we have a lot of things that everybody thinks you need to spend, do, go. One, back to the younger people, there are all these events surrounding weddings. And so many women are like, I can't afford the wedding in Spain and the bachelorette party and all this. And so it's okay to say, I choose not to spend my money there. Right. And for women also, I choose not to, older women. I have friends that always want to do stuff. I'm like, it's not that I can't afford it. I just don't want to spend my money there. And nobody can argue with that. The other tip, if you start with that, then that's going to give you more empowerment. It's also going to let you examine where do you want to spend your money. And that's the flip side of that. Be intentional about where you're spending your money. And let it be okay that you spend some money on yourself. And you and I have talked about this. Women tend to deny themselves things that they would never dream if their child needed something, right?
Right.
Sure. And so put that money aside, plan for it. Safe, we do our ally buckets, and then spend it.
Right.
And enjoy it.
What did you call my because you deserve it bucket?
Because, right? Yep. Because you deserve it. And I have a client that has a bucket called Don't Be Cheap.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I deserve it. And there has to be that. I mean, obviously we're not going into debt over these things, but there is a way to organize yourself that you can have the things that you want.
Buy that new bra or that new shirt.
Right. That's the hope. That's the empowerment.
That's concert or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love. So what is your biggest mission when it comes to helping women with their financial lives?
I would say helping them understand their money and their decision making and helping them to guide them more into a value-based decision making. So don't spend on the stuff that you don't care about, but what do you care about, right? Because you're going to feel more empowered and in control when you are spending money on things that you value and you want. And then I help them build the tools that they need to develop that so that they have a healthy but unemotional relationship with their money.
I love it.
Not making the emotional decisions. Yeah.
You could tell every woman listening one thing about money, what would it be?
Money changes don't happen in one big fell swoop. So it's overwhelming, but just start. Do one thing. I have a course called not a course, but a workshop I do, the 15-day money makeover. And it's just little like silly things that you can do every day for 15 days. And people say, wow, it made such a difference. So don't think it's a big thing. Just think of one little thing you can do today. And then one little thing you can do 4 days from now. Yeah.
So, speaking of your course and just resources in general, books, is there books you recommend, tools, like if anyone wants to continue, educating themselves this on their own?
So, so I actually don't really promote apps because nobody sticks with them, right? That track your spending thing. They do it for 3 days. There is a book, The Psychology of Money, which I find interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's something that is oh, I forget. I
Okay.
forget.
We'll look it up.
We'll look it up. Yeah.
Sure, it's there,
Uh,
a book somewhere.
yeah. And one of the things, if you're married, it's not a book, it's not something, but just ask your spouse, how did you grow up with money?
Yeah.
And a little tip, I have a client and I told them, I want you to spend 7 minutes a week talking about money in a positive way. And they said, why seven? I said, because that's about as much as you can do. 5 is too short, 10 is too long. Pick seven. Set a timer. Talk about it. Because once you start talking about it, you are eventually going to start coming to agreement on how it looks in the future as opposed to how it came in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, these are some unbelievable tips, and I'm sure there's going to be follow-up interviews with you and lots of questions because this is so needed. And again, women so underserved in this area. I mean, you and I just went to a financial, event with, empowering women with their finances with a financial firm. And the statistics were pretty mind blowing. That was one thing I found out. Half the population's divorced as well. So there's just so much going on. But I mean, how the stats of women not being saving for retirement and those kind of taking care of their ailing parents, they're more likely to do that is just crazy to me. So this is so, so important. You're so important. The work you're doing is so important. So I'm grateful for you. And I
Thank you.
really hope that I can get all of this information out to as many people that as possible that would need to hear it and support them. So how do people find you, get a hold of you, if they are interested in working with you?
Yeah, I'm pretty low key. I don't have a lot of social media stuff. You could maybe put in the notes down there the link to my website. Nobody really knows the name of my company because it's just working with me. It's called CLC Financial Coaching.
Okay.
And the CLC is Chrissy Louise Chase. That's my name. CLCfinancialcoaching.com. And from there, you can just set up a free, no obligation 30-minute chat. And I will say, like, I'm super honest if I can't help somebody. Because there are times that somebody needs either a lawyer, a divorce, like a divorce attorney or a bankruptcy attorney. And I'm not that person. And I'm not going to go out of my lane. I make sure, or somebody might need taxes. Um, so even if it's not necessarily something that I could help you with, I can get you to the right person uh, and get them helping you because the key is just to get started.
No, absolutely. That's fantastic. So if anyone wants to get a hold of Chrissy, that's the website, and we'll put it, definitely flash it up. And then also through me, I can always connect you. But I do really recommend, I feel like if you're thinking about starting a business or you already own a business and you're struggling with managing the both, you're very good at that. You've helped me a lot with that, and I'm super appreciative. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll have plenty of more questions and talks in the future with all of our guests wanting to know more and just eat it all up. So love and light, and have a great day.
Thank you. And thank you very much for having me. And I have to say, it's been a joy working with you. And what you are doing for women to empower them to start their own businesses is we need a million more of you.